Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amour de Soi Wellness, and Donovon Jenson is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hi, everyone. Great. So today we are talking about time management. And I know a lot of us have the experience of there's not enough time. Yes. And therefore, you're always feeling like maybe overwhelmed, exhausted, stressed over there never being enough time. And so time management and how that can really not only just have a better in general, but feeling like we have a handle on our life versus never feeling like that. So, Donna, your thoughts about time management and the difference that can make for people?
Yeah, so I think specifically in regards to happiness, which is, what we're really trying to talk about.
True.
So many people don't have a good handle on their time, and that leads to, like you were saying, a lot of stress, a lot of feeling like, I had 30 things I wanted to get done today, and I only did 5, and I don't know what happened. Like, maybe I'm not productive enough, and I suck. And like, people have a lot of negative self-talk around time and time management and getting stuff done. So I think it's really important to have, especially if you want to get a lot of stuff done, a system or some tools in place to help out. I know for me personally, the difference between both what I was actually able to produce and how I felt changed drastically once I started. For me, I just use a calendar and put all my events in there, and I also put all my to-dos in there. I know slightly different things work for other people, but for me, that's made a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, me as well. I don't just have like a to-do list. I started using Trello board to kind of manage my life, and I used to do it weekly, but that wasn't working out for me so well because I would just not do the day planning or my week planning, and then I'd get lost in. So what I started implementing was in the morning just planning out my day, like what are the critical items that are important to get done, and literally take it out of my to-do list into my calendar and plot it that way.
Yep.
Versus like thinking, oh, I'll do like 20 things and then feeling bad because I only got 5 done. Versus like, okay, I literally only had time for 5 things. And that way you're just following your calendar, and then you know exactly what you're doing the moment you're doing it, versus like, oh, well, I could just be on Facebook for a half hour and somehow I lost time and I didn't get to do that thing that I needed to do. So yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest benefits, is I guess they're twofold, right, of having your to-do list scheduled into your calendar. The first is that you basically know what you should be doing at any period of time. So when 9 o'clock rolls around, or 10 o'clock, or whatever, instead of sitting there and being like, oh, what thing should I knock off my to-do list? Or should I watch TV? Or should I, browse around on the internet? Or, instead of making the choices in the moment, you already have a set plan of action. And that, for me, and I think for many people, has phenomenal impact on actually getting stuff done. Like, you actually do it because the choice is already made. You're not sitting there like, how do I feel? Do I feel like writing? Do I feel like doing whatever this thing is? Probably not. So you'll default to something easier, but if the decision's made, you'll do it. And then the other benefit is where your time is going in the day. So you don't as often have that feeling of like, well, I was supposed to do 35 things. But when you look in the calendar, when you have time actually blocked to the tasks, it's like, well, that's not realistic unless you're working from midnight to midnight and not sleeping. You can see in the calendar like, oh, I only had time to do these certain things.
absolutely, yes. And it's really useful to just not just put your critical items in, like your work stuff, which I used to do when I was in school. I would just put all my school stuff, but I wouldn't put the rest of my life in. Hey, you have the rest of your life. You got to put your whole life in your calendar. to make your whole life work. Because if you're noticing certain aspects, kind of like maybe your health, you're not working out because there's never enough time. And it's like, no, put it in your calendar and treat it like an appointment, like going to the doctor's or the dentist. Like, yeah, you're not going to miss your dentist appointment, or you could be charged an extra fee. So like, imagine you're getting charged or something if you didn't make your gym appointment or whatever. Like, that's a real thing. So one of the things that I notice of, it's one thing to like put it in your calendar. It's another thing to actually like follow your calendar. Sometimes I put reoccurring things in my calendar and then I ignore it because it's just kind of my thing. So that's where I switched to planning it every day versus like, this is just a big chunk of time I'm going to work on my business. And then it's not like specifying the actual task I'm doing. So then I'm like, oh, well, I could just browse on Facebook or get into a YouTube like tunnel, black hole of YouTube videos, and it just, it can escape us. So putting the actual tasks has made a difference for me.
Yeah. And I think to me, the bar that I try to use when I'm tasking things out is like, what is the outcome I expect at the end of that time block?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because like I have also in the past had stuff like YouTube, work on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then I get there and I kind of work on some stuff, but it doesn't really feel right. And time is like slipping through the cracks. And like you said, I accidentally watched another YouTube video that has nothing to do with the stuff I'm supposed to work on. I accidentally did this other thing. So for me, what's really helped is having not just the task, but the outcome. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I get it done like faster than what I had blocked out. And then it's like free reign. Like, yeah, now I know I have time. Yeah. To just look up random stuff.
Yep.
But that's made a huge difference, is having the outcome for each of those blocks. I did have a question. I have my own thing I talk about afterwards, but how do you feel about, because you kind of put like working out in the calendar, but like leisure time stuff?
Oh, that is so important. I think, we all need like downtime, and sometimes we need to like shut off our brain and watch, my guilty pleasure right now is This Is Us TV show. Just like, so good. And it's like, put that in your calendar. And I don't actually necessarily, I do need to start implementing putting in time to watch TV or just do whatever, free time to do nothing. Actually, on Sundays, I have block out time, 2 hours of like catch up time. Like everything I didn't get up to. So like, that's where I could stick it in, because things get moved constantly. And I realized, even though I wanted to be consistent with doing this at this time every week, there's always curveballs that are getting thrown at you. So usually I try to go to bed at like 11 or 12. So I did block out in my calendar from 11 to 12 a.m. I have decompressed bedtime. So I'm supposed to get into my bedtime routine at that point. And am I always successful? No. I'll admit it.
Yeah. So I think that's important to note too, is that keeping a calendar doesn't necessarily mean you're going to follow everything perfectly, right. Yeah. But it does make those decision points easier. We'll say, I'm just making up numbers, but like if 75% of the time that bedtime in your calendar helps you go to bed, that's like, it's not perfect, but it's 75% more than it would have been had you not had that plan. Like if you didn't have it blocked out. And that's another thing that, as I've talked to people about this in the past, people get really concerned about kind of it feeling too tight, too locked in. Or that they just won't follow anything at all. And I think there's a balance, right? There's a balance between scheduling things out to make sure that you know what you're supposed to be doing, or like to give time for the tasks you want to do, while at the same time being flexible enough to know that, I don't know, like if somebody had an emergency at 11:45, that like you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make your bedtime. So like, you deal with that other thing. So I've found, for me, at least using Google Calendar, it's super nice to be able to just pull events around.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do that.
Because then I know, okay, this thing is supposed to take an hour. Mm-hmm. Something came up. Now I can throw this into Thursday and replace that block with something else. But then that way, none of the tasks and
Right.
none of the blocks actually get lost.
Absolutely.
So I end up scheduling my entire day out every day, like you were saying, same thing. I schedule out the full day. And then I usually keep a couple hours in the night, maybe like an hour and a half. That's like free time. And then sometimes other tasks end up slipping down into that.
Right.
But if they don't, then I just look at those blocks as like, cool. That's my leisure time to do whatever I want to do. That's what works for me.
No, I agree. That's what I have to do. And another thing that helps me, it's one thing. I get like you're not going to be 100% following your calendar every single day. And if you're playing like a big game of life, your things are going to happen. Life gets thrown at you regardless of what you do. And it's just like, no, it doesn't mean you take it out of your schedule or you just like forget about it. It's like, no, you have to, that thing, like if you miss your workout because you had to take your daughter to the ER, it's like really important, like, yeah, you can forego the workout. That doesn't mean if you had a commitment to yourself to work out 5 days a week and you missed it because of that emergency, you can make it up on a day you don't work out. Like maybe you don't work out on the weekend, so you can make that workout up versus just like, oh, well, I didn't, there's my workout. So it's really like thinking about what are you committed to, whether it's like working out or working on certain business tasks. It's like, yeah, it doesn't always happen at the time that you want it to happen. And if it doesn't, then you have to like reschedule and move it. But if you catch yourself constantly moving that thing that you don't want to do to like, oh, to the next day. Oh, and that didn't happen. Oh, move it to the next day. Oh, it didn't happen. I didn't move it. That's where you really got to like be a little more intentional and be like, what is the thing that's stopping you from accomplishing that thing? And what I notice is like, if I'm not reliable, like it's one thing to get it in my calendar, but if I'm not reliable at doing it, like it keeps getting pushed off in my calendar over and over and over again, and I just keep moving a day and I'm not doing it consistently, then I'm like, okay, I need to involve another person because I'm clearly not reliable doing it myself. I'm reliable brushing my teeth every morning. I don't have to check in with someone to brush my teeth. I know I'm going to do that. I don't even have to put that in my calendar because it's just what I do. It's easy. But like one thing, I was struggling with was just sticking to a morning meditation routine and like also planning out my day, where I didn't always do it in the morning. I would just kind of pick a random time and then it would just get lost. So I do have a accountability buddy. Like I have a Zoom call in the mornings and we hop on the call for like 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. I just type it into my calendar and then she tells me what she's going to do and she does the same thing. And then it just gets my planning for the day done. And so I know this is exactly what I'm doing. And that's the same thing, when it came to my health and fitness. I wanted my nutrition was like not always on track. Like sometimes I cheat, I wanted to be like really healthy for 2 months and it wasn't always happening. And I was like, okay, I really need to get another person involved. And I guess I was into accountability. And yeah, I text my friend Alan, who's also in the same boat of wanting to get on track with his nutrition and health and well-being. And so I just text him on the day, at the end of the day, it's in my calendar, 9 p.m., on track or not on track, or I cheated. So I have to like admit to someone that I cheated. So if I am going to cheat, then I'm like, okay, well, it's got to be something worth it, not like, the stupid thing that I ate because it was just right in front of me that I didn't even really want. So that makes a difference too.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you just mentioned, but I guess what I'll hone in on is that you said you have that call in the morning, but it doesn't take that long, right? You said like 5, maybe 10 minutes, but just a couple minutes of structuring out your day with someone else makes such a big difference in what you actually get done. And I think that's another thing that in talking to people in the past, like they get worried that like, I'm going to spend all day planning my day and I'm never going to do anything. But it doesn't have to take really any time at all. And the other part of it is what you're mentioning with like social accountability is so helpful for those calendar tasks that seem to slide around. Like sometimes the ones that I have, they slide around for a long time. And then eventually I'm like, I actually don't need to do this. This is not important. I don't know why this is on here. But then other times it's like, oh, that super hard, like, personal best sprint that I'm trying to do. Yeah, no, wow. Let's keep moving that one. Like, all that stuff. Yeah. So I do think it makes it so much easier. I would say for most people probably to have social accountability on things and have them scheduled at a regular time, because then you have not only your calendar telling you to go, but then also some amount of like, well, I don't want to let this other person down. I don't want to look bad in front of them, or, you know, like for exercise and for daily planning, like they're relying on having another person to enhance the experience, or it's basically how the experience is structured. So it makes a big difference.
It does. Yeah. And it's like when you keep putting something off because you told that person you're going to be doing that thing, and then you tell her the same thing, oh, I didn't do it. then like the third day you're like, I really need to get that, because I don't want to tell her like a fourth time that I didn't do that thing. So yeah. It does help, even though it's like really, really simple.
I've also found in the past, I'm not doing it right now, but I've done something similar where I've had like a meeting with someone every week to just talk about generally what we got done and what we're trying to do for the next week. And that has helped a lot for kind of building out a weekly schedule. So like the way that I do it ends up with a good amount of scheduling, but I try to figure out like, okay, what do I want to get done for the entire month? Okay, what do I want to get done for this week? Okay, what am I going to do in the day? Right? And that actually does end up, like, again, it's not a ton of time, but it does take some time planning up front. But the nice thing is those bigger goals almost always have progress towards them, right? Like something crazy has to happen. Like the month I broke my collarbone, like that was out the window. But besides that, kind of filtering down more and more granularly has helped me at least go from what are the bigger actual important things I want to do, and then move that into the daily tasks, which I think is the real importance for me. Because sometimes there are days that I like, every once in a while I'll schedule things in and I'm like, I got all this stuff done. But then I have the record and I look back at the actual tasks for the day and it's like, I actually don't know what goals these are feeding sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I got a ton of stuff done, but like I look back at my month, stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. So when I switched it and started moving from the bigger goals down to the smaller daily actions, that also helped me spend my time on things that were really important. So for one example, I used to schedule time in to learn a language every day, like practice Spanish.
Cool.
Except at some point, I realized that I was doing it just to do it. And that wasn't actually something that was important to me. I still think it's cool. Like maybe at some point it'll be important to me. But once I scheduled like the bigger goals and started weeding them down, I was like, this hour a day should be going somewhere else.
Wow. An hour a day, that is a big commitment.
So and I might have been exaggerating. It's probably closer to half an hour, but still, like it's enough time that it adds up and it can be meaningful in other ways. Like to me, fitness is very important.
Yeah.
I already have that like built into my routine, but if, for example, I didn't, like I would have easily just swapped those out.
Right. Oh, totally. I was just thinking with the Spanish thing, if you actually had a goal at the end of the year to go to like Mexico or Spain, even like be able to speak like somewhat fluently where you could hold a conversation, then that would be like a clear goal to work towards. And then, spending 30 to 60 minutes a day on Spanish would seem reasonable because you do have that goal. But if you don't have that trip planned, then, like what's that point if you don't have anything like specific to work towards?
Yeah. And when I was working on it was a while ago before I had like gotten all the pieces I needed to like look at my life as a whole and then kind of like put it back together. But the one thing that was super useful during that time that I did have was putting things in the calendar, because then once I started getting some of these other ideas, I had a historical record of like, oh, I spent a month doing this. I spent another month doing this. So I had all this data. So like I guess I'm just getting at another benefit of scheduling things in, is you then have all this information that you can use for reflection later or for future planning into things that you find important, as opposed to just the like, okay, what do I got to do tomorrow type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And that is something I've been also in progress of working on. I haven't been always so successful at it, but that's like actually a concept in business of just like reverse engineering your goals. If you want to make like some amount at the end of the year, break it up into months. Like how much do you need to be making per month? How much do you need to make per week? How much do you need to make per day? If it really gets broken down, it's a little too specific. I usually set more like weekly goals of like, oh, I want a new client, 1 or 2 new clients every week. So if I want 1 or 2 new clients every week, how many people do I have to interact with? How many people do I have to reach out to? How many emails or phone calls do I have to make that goal happen? And like reflecting on the results to be like, okay, maybe it takes 10 calls a week. Maybe it takes 100 calls a week. I don't know, like figuring out those numbers and figuring out like what would be a balance to discover for myself, and maybe realizing, oh, maybe this goal was a little too lofty. Maybe I need to do some tweaks and really, not beat myself up at the end of the year if I didn't meet that goal, but to really take the actions necessary that would be sufficient to meet that goal based on looking at past results on like this 100 calls made like this much progress. And so, yeah, this is, if I want to be on track for that goal, then this is what I need to do.
Yeah. And I feel like you only get that information if you have it recorded somewhere, right? Like there's no way to go back. I mean, maybe there is, but some horrible, difficult way to go back and like figure out what you did during each of the days to produce those results. I did have a question around, I'd be curious, what was kind of your path into kind of scheduling things more and more, right? Because I don't think anyone really starts by just like, all of a sudden I'm going to throw everything in my calendar all the time and it's perfect. So I'd be curious to know what your path was to organizing your time more.
Yeah, no, it really because before when I was in med school, I would just put like my assignments. I wasn't really fantastic I was a super procrastinator, and then I would just wait till last minute to like study or get things done. But I could get away with that in undergrad. I could not get away with that in med school because there's way too much. So I really had to step up my game, realize I have to study every day and I can't wait till the last minute because that reflects in my grades significantly. So I was like, that's not working. So I got better on creating a study, but I still procrastinated and I get distracted. It wasn't until I took personal development courses with Landmark, and it was in my 3rd class, the self-expression and leadership program. I had an amazing leader who was like calendar guru. She was like the calendar guru, and she helped build a multi-million-dollar company from like 8 million to like 80 million. So I was like, should listen to her because she knows her stuff all about the calendars, and she showed me how she does her calendar. And so I kind of like followed her example, and I could show you. It's not like perfect. I'm gonna screen share my calendar just so you guys. And it might look a little chaotic. People are like sometimes freak out when they see it a little bit. So this is like last week, and I didn't even put everything in. But yeah, you could see that I have my HappyTalks scheduled on Tuesdays, and sometimes I have to like have like different colors. Like so, on the side over here, I have all the areas of my life that are important to me. And one thing that I want to see all the colors represented in the week. So I know I have like some balance. Yeah, I have date night scheduled on Sunday night. Because it's sometimes easy to be like, oh, well, my partner will be understanding if I just push off that thing for that really urgent business thing. They'll be understanding. But then if you keep doing it, then it's like you're neglecting your significant other. Or like on Sunday, I went to Funderland with my niece and nephew and my sister, and it was a lot of fun. Or just having time to catch up with people in my life that matter to me, because those are all important. And so sometimes because I didn't get everything done, and I didn't always put everything that I was doing in the calendar. But yeah, usually I have like a meditation 8 a.m. and then I have like the accountability call too is scheduled then, and then I put in the Zoom link so I know like exactly where That's happening. And then, I have my friends and family time, cherishing my partner, business stuff. This calendar, the creative self-expression, is the one that's always lacking, where I wanted to like put an hour a week to work towards something creative or artistic, like dance or singing or something, and I don't always do that. So I realized that that's something I need to put in my calendar, because it's more for my sense of like fulfillment in life than global impact. That one's actually been lacking too. So I'm just noticing this is representative of every week, but this is good to just be observing my own calendar. And what I do is like Perfect Health. I have my CrossFit workout usually 5 days a week. Last week I had missed one of the days because I had to drive to San Francisco for an appointment, but usually I'm pretty on top of it with my workouts, and that's helped a lot. And then like I usually put things in my Trello board, like appointments that I need to schedule, because things that I did accomplish my haircut this weekend, but there were like a lot of things that I needed to get done, and then things to buy. It's like my shopping list, and calls to make, questions, emails, and other tasks. I did vote, so I need to like I did vote, yes. So that's kind of how I do my calendar.
Yeah, no, that's really nice to share like the actual example and what things look like. And I haven't seen before blocking it out by category, which I think is really cool. Because mine is just a fat list of tasks, but it probably is nice to be able to visually see quickly, here is what this contributes to. And it's what I was talking about, like at a higher level, right? This is the more important value type thing that I'm actually trying to achieve by doing this task. And I also don't know if everyone, I just realized that like I'm familiar with Trello, but I don't know if everyone is. So it's probably nice to have an example of like what that actually was and what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, because in Trello you can have shared boards, because me and my partner, we have a couples board, and we have like one of those boards is like date ideas. So we make sure, ideally we shoot for like 2 date nights a week, but sometimes it only ends up being one, but that's like the bare minimum, one night a week where it's like date night, and that's really enhancing our relationship and having that quality time. And so
I might steal that, because I also have a date night planned, but a lot of the times we're like, so it's date night, but what are we gonna do? And it's a little bit harder because it's long distance, but still, if we had ideas and we had stuff beforehand, it would be much easier to be like, okay, we're doing this time. Right. So I might steal that. I wanted to ask you another question around, I guess it's not really a question, but I noticed that, and you mentioned that you had scheduled out your time to go just kind of hang out and have some fun and do some stuff. Yeah. And I think that really highlights some of what I was talking about before and what you said as well. But even if you have a task that's not like productive, it's nice to have in your calendar just so you kind of know where the time went, as well as know basically how the rest of your day can be structured. So I think that I don't know, I guess this is the question. Do you feel like it's more or less restrictive to have that planned already, right? To say like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours doing this. Like, would you have felt beholden to your calendar if at the 2 hour mark, it was like, oh, we still want to stay here and hang out longer?
That's hard. It depends on what's after your calendar. I don't have like every half hour blocked off. There are gaps in my calendar, as you saw. And if there's time, if there's quality, if you can, whatever is like next in your calendar to accomplish, if it's, how urgent is that thing? And, you do have to make up that thing if it is like, you can't just blow off whatever you're going to do next. So that's really like the determining factor, and like really your call, because I don't want to diminish family quality time. But it's like finding that balance and really sticking to your word as far as your calendar. If there was nothing after that thing, then go for it. If there was something really important, then, do that thing. If it was like, it wasn't like super important, okay, maybe you could move that. Yeah.
That's mainly what I wanted to get at, because I feel like a lot of people just get very concerned about both sides of it, right? Either like, oh, I'm not sticking perfectly to my calendar, so now I suck and I can't follow through with anything. And then there's the other side that's like, I have to follow this stupid calendar no matter what, and like now I can't have my family time and yada yada yada. So like I just wanted to parse out how you felt about finding that balance, because I think people who haven't done it and don't do it get worried on both ends. So it's very like there is a path.
Right, there's a path, and it's like if you're freaking out about not having time for your family, it's your responsibility to put in the time with your family and like stick with it. And like that is valuable time that you don't want to keep pushing off for whatever it is that you're working on with your job or your business. I always make sure I see like pink is my cherishing my partner time. And so like I gotta see that. It's like if that's not there in my calendar, I need to be responsible. Like, no, there's other things, business is business, but like my partner is really important to me. And this is like a matter of all these areas are important to me. So I want to make sure I nourish each area. Yeah.
I think that also gets at kind of like an unfortunate reality that at a certain point, how you use your time, you have to make trade-offs, right? Like, exactly. And that doesn't mean that like you were saying, like you have these different categories, you have allocated time for them that you feel is appropriate for each one. But like, I feel like a lot of people have so many expectations of all the things they want to do, but they're not realistic about the actual amount of time that will consume. And once your calendar gets full, once you're out of hours in the day,
we have so many hours. Like,
there's nothing more you can take on. So I think that's another thing that you just have to accept, right? Like at a certain point, you have to make decisions about time. Like the first level is probably weeding out all the stuff. You're like, cool, 5 hours on Facebook. Like, I don't know what this is. This needs to be gone. But once you start filling those back in with meaningful tasks, still at a certain point, it becomes, okay, which of these is most important to me? Because there is an opportunity cost that's spending your time in any way, right? There's always so many different things we can be doing. So eventually it gets to the point where it's like, I'm going to choose this over this. And I'm just going to be okay with it because time is finite.
Right. You only have so much time. I mean, you have like a lot of other things you can expand, but like time is limited. And I think it's really important to not beat yourself up over like not getting everything done. It's just like you only had so much time. But this, like when you lay it all out there in your calendar, then you're clear on what was realistic to accomplish versus always having the feeling like it's never enough. It's never enough. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. And it's like, could you really? Maybe if you cut out the Facebook time. Right. Like put in your calendar. I mean, I'm not saying cut out Facebook for your whole life, but you can get sucked into black holes sometimes. You gotta be responsible for that. Yeah.
And I think most of us probably know which activities are the ones that somehow we get sucked into but don't feel super awesome about.
Right.
And like you're saying, I think that's the first level, right? Is if you feel like you're not getting enough done, is kind of identifying what those are and then pulling those out. But yeah, once you get to a certain like level of efficiency or whatever, once enough of those stuff have been pulled out, then you really are just running up against reality. Just like there's a certain set of time.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't, I mean, it doesn't make sense to beat yourself up once you know, especially that you have pulled out those things that are wasting time. Still doesn't make sense to beat yourself up like during that, because those are habits and you need to like, unwind them and work things out. But especially once you've pulled out those tasks, then you know your time is going to the things that you want to do. So you can't expect to do more than there is possibly time for.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think we covered time management pretty well. And it's really, I think we covered it in a way it's not just about like, managing your time. It's really about having a better quality of life and feeling more productive and accomplished and, feeling freed from the stress of, oh, there's so much to get done. So that's really, what we're about at HappyTalks. So.
Yeah. But for me, it's not, I mean, productivity is nice and it's useful and it serves a purpose in the realm, But the thing that really matters is managing your time in a way that you feel good about what's going on. And that's what I think like really matters and makes sense, not just productivity, which is often how this topic is looked at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.